We were pushing a thing called eco-congregations, not very well. Sometimes think we were more famous outside Cumbria than in it. Produced a lot of reports and stuff. A number of us got together and thought the idea of eco-communities might be worth developing. The County Council gave us £5,000 to develop 5 communities, and we had a look at the ideas and we decided to go for it, to be one of the 5 experimental communities.
We could see that this was one of the biggest issues that mankind had ever faced, the environmental crisis of climate change and fossil fuels. And that this really needed to be addressed by local community activity.
And we got this £1,000 cheque. We floated the idea of starting some sort of eco-community, and we called it Sustainable Brampton.
The idea that was around in Brampton was to have some kind of sustainable community, which was put forward by the people that created the project. But actually, to turn that into reality, you have to get people on board. And one of the most difficult things for all transition town type initiatives or projects like this is to get people to know that it exists and to have some way of engaging with it, either with the group itself or indeed with the way that they live.
The work on food has been important. The community garden, the allotments that have been created over the last 5 or 6 years have been important. They're continuing to function and they will continue. We've got work in hand around energy, which hasn't quite materialised yet, but we're about to give that a big push in the not too distant future around local generation of energy. On travel, we've established new cycling groups, walking groups, and we've got a group around travel itself which are promoting public transport and engaging with issues around access to facilities and movement around the area.
As the initial framework in which Sustainable Brampton was set up is to make Brampton a self-contained community, less dependent on the outside. So if it's growing its own produce, generating its own energy, organising its own internal transport systems, that's much more sustainable in the long term and has less of a carbon footprint.
We used to run really just an autumn harvest market as the farmers' markets were organised elsewhere. But now, as an organisation, we've taken over the organisation of a farmers' market every month. And this, for the future, will provide us with the opportunity of selling ourselves as well as the local farmers' produce and growing the organisation. So we see it as being an extremely valuable part of selling the message of what Sustainable Brampton is all about. It's all about people, and people's attitudes and minds and behaviours don't change quickly. Everyone, you and I included, go down the easy path. Well, there are some difficult paths that we need to go down in the future, and we need to start that process before we reach one of the tipping points, or many of the tipping points that will cause our society to have to make dramatic changes.
I think it is very difficult for communities at this point to know what they can do, but I think we need, above all, to continue to make our voice heard. The worst thing we can do is to stop protesting, to stop sharing our experience of how we've come to learn about these things over the last 10 years.
You can't impose some kind of structure on a community. What you've got to do is to have people in the community who themselves are sort of self-propelled and self-interested in what you're talking about, and give them the mechanism that they can do something to change.
What we've managed to do is to raise the profile and to provide opportunities to people to engage in some aspects of what we do in a different way, which we hope will lead to a more sustainable community.
It's a growing movement. You've only got to look at what's happening up and down the world to see that this sort of idea is growing.
There's enough people around who think in similar ways, but I don't think we've harnessed them all yet, and that's what the future campaign will be, is to bring more people who are prepared to do something into the organisation.